Hello and welcome to our radio. Today is 29th October 2020 and we have some important topics to talk about. I'm your host Sakleen and today is an important day for us because we have finally concluded the 2+2 summit with USA and we have completed it successfully and it was constructive as told by the Indian official. Now this 2+2 summit was very important for us because it held the key for our ties with USA in the future. And previously we've also discussed about how this was reminiscent of what happened in 2016 and John Kerry visited India and after which India acceded to the Paris Agreement. Well, that was a different scenario altogether because the ruling party that kind of supported India to join the Paris Agreement did not win the elections. Rather, the party which later pulled out of the Paris Agreement won the elections. But now Trump's party has come down. Trump's counterparts have come down. Trump's subordinates have come down to help us talk about Indo-Pacific, talk about China, talk about trade, health, infrastructure, so on and so forth. But everything falls or everything relies on what happens post the election. So let us discuss a little bit about this 2+2 summit, what happened and how it will help us in the future. If you talk about the 2+2 summit, it took some time and it was held in a very important spot, represented by important individuals from across the governance sector. And we saw several conclusions that came. First important conclusion was BECA. BECA stands for Basic Exchange Cooperation Agreement. It was signed between USA and India. Now what is the importance of BECA for India? Now once we have signed BECA, India will be allowed to use geospatial maps of the USA, which will help us to get pinpoint military accuracy of automated hardware systems and weapons like cruise missiles, ballistic missiles, so on and so forth. Also, we will also become an important buyer or a potential buyer of an unmanned aerial vehicle called as the Predator B given to us by the USA. Now Predator B uses spatial data for accurate strikes on enemies. And we have to note that this is one among the four key agreements or one of the four foundational military communication agreements signed between India and the USA. The other three were the GSOMIA or the GSMOA, like we ought to call it, that is the General Security of Military Information Agreement. Apart from that, we have the LEMOA, which is the Logistic Exchange Memorandum Agreement, and then we have the CISMOA or the Communications and Information Security Memorandum of Agreement. So now we have BECA, Basic Exchange Cooperation Agreement. So with all this, we are one of those countries that have signed all four agreements with the USA and will have good cooperation in the future as well. Apart from that, what we also need to know is how we have signed agreements on different subjects like agreement on health, agreement on cooperation against COVID-19, agreement on counter-terrorism, agreement on renewable energy, agreement on space, agreement on cyberspace, agreement on counter-narcotics, so many things. And we also stand at a very crucial space because USA has done far more than what we thought of. USA has called out Pakistan for the actions it has done at the borders or the cross-border ceasefire violations that Pakistan undertakes on, let's say, a daily basis. USA has said that this is wrong and this should be spoken against. And of course, USA has spoken about the 2008 Mumbai attacks and the 2016 Uri and Pathankot attacks that Pakistan had done, terrorists had done, and said this was very, very wrong and Pakistan should justify the wrongs that these people suffered because of it. Apart from this, China also was called out by USA. USA has said that China's measures in the LAC region are irrational and India will be supported by USA in the future when it comes to these kind of scenarios. It's very thoughtful and nice of USA to do this and pledge immense support to India. But now it is all depending on how we take this forward, what ramifications it will have with the Indo-China relations and what ramifications it will have with the Indo-US relations. It is also important that the elections, who wins the elections and who loses the elections, because this is a stance of the Trump's policy. We'll have to note who else will do it, what else will be done if someone else, that is his adversary Joe Biden, comes to power. Well, apart from that, what we have to note is the whole scenario that's panning out. There are two things important here. One is the Indo-Pacific and the other is Quad that was quite important. Now, if we just move ahead a little bit, talk about another article with regards to the India-US relations, the 2+2 summit, we can understand that India now, after this 2+2 summit, is at a forefront. It's at a forefront of leading these developing nations against what China has done. Apart from that, it is also in the limelight because it is a potential alliance partnership that India has forged with USA, and it will lead the countries against China and will have a great policy with USA. We have to understand that the author in this article, how he speaks about these regions and these things. First, he speaks about the Indo-Pacific. Now, the Indo-Pacific becomes important as we are collaborating with USA in the Indo-Pacific region through the Quad. Now, he calls the Indo-Pacific as a grand politico-economic vision, which is a grand politico-economic vision, and he calls the Quad a forum for military cooperation and consultation. Now, he says it is up to you guys to see this together or to see it separately. Now, if we want to see the Quad and Indo-Pacific together or we want to see it separately, it's up to us. And we can see it together because there are two things. All the members of the Quad, be it USA, be it Australia, be it Japan or India, are all a part of the Indo-Pacific region. And all are bound by a common sentiment called as anti-China sentiment. So that is why these both can be looked together as interlinked. Apart from that, we can talk about why we cannot see it differently, or why we can see it differently, because they have their own things to progress with, and it's very difficult for them to exist, this Quad and Indo-Pacific thing to exist together if they exist differently without the common binding. Categorically, please understand that the problem of India with China is far more deeper and far more wider than Australia's problem with China. Australia's problem is not very deep except for the fact that it is against the hegemony of China in the South China Sea. But India is a question of territorial integrity. So if they tend to exist separately, it will be difficult for them to exist, and these things bound them together. Let's talk about what are the problems or what are the hurdles for India to excel in the Indo-Pacific region. First, the problem is about economy. It's about the economic constraints. India needs more political and economic constructs to survive in the Indo-Pacific region. Predominantly, we can talk about RCEP. RCEP, or the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership of the ASEAN, which India has not acceded to or has stepped back from acceding. Why? Because India is considering its domestic political considerations. It is worried about its local manufacturers, domestic manufacturers getting affected due to RCEP, and has stopped from going ahead. And this can be taken as advantage by China. The trade and economy might of China in this region is great. Let me give you some examples. India has FTAs in this Indo-Pacific region with ASEAN countries, with the South Korea in general, with Japan and Sri Lanka. But it does not have FTAs with Australia, with New Zealand, with USA, with Bangladesh and Maldives. This is the scenario of India. If you talk about China, China has FTAs with all of them except Bangladesh and of course its problematic USA. It's now going forward with trilateral FTAs with several nations. It simply proves that China is way more ahead of India in this region economically. So tomorrow the situation comes where these countries have to choose between China and India, they would definitely choose China. So economic might is a problem. And India quotes simple reasons, that is domestic political considerations. Apart from this, you can talk about military shortages. We know that India conducts military exercises with most of these nations, be it Indonesia, be it Malaysia or Thailand or Sri Lanka or Maldives, even Japan for that matter. But China is way more than that. It's more than defense equipments. Defense exercises. It's about defense equipments, providing defense services, and this makes China more and better. Again, even on military side, we are losing. So what is the way forward? The way forward is just that we have to move forward with economy in mind. We have to move forward with the economic role, that is a key role that we can play here. Forget about defense, that's a later stage, but we have to engage with these nations through economic cooperation, should make it better and bigger, and RCEP can be one among them. Or the author says you can form a sort of a loose strategic alliance with USA and its counterparts, but that might lose or that might fall down sooner or later because it will not have some kind of strategic significance. So this is the thing here. if we are collaborating with USA to work in the Indo-Pacific and to work in the Quad region, we also have several backdrops or backstrains that we need to worry about. And if we can focus on them, if we can progress with them, we can go forward in a straighter and a better manner and counter China through the Indo-Pacific and the Quad grouping. Well, this is about international relations that is important and about the 2+2 dialogue. Let us focus a little bit on something more personal. Let's talk about a disorder that is in the newspaper today called as dyslexia. So you must have seen the movie called as Tare Zameen Par, where Amir Khan plays the lead role and Darshil Safari plays the role of Ishan Avasthi, a dyslexic child. Dyslexia is also called as the specific learning disorder, where the child is not able to, who of course grows up to be an adult, but it's predominantly seen in the childhood, is a condition that makes it difficult for the child to read or write. He finds difficult to do a lot of things like decoding or converting symbols into sounds, like comprehending different difficult words. He has poor phonological awareness. He has difficulty to recognize similarities and differences in sound, like rhyming words, etc. They have trouble sequencing words. They have trouble remembering sequences, like the days in a week, the upcoming numbers. They have so many issues. Like they have difficulty in remembering what was taught because their working memory is little bit less powerful in comparison to others, and so many things as such. So dyslexia is a very, very significant disorder that several children in this country suffer from, and it's so different and so otherwise that today if you encounter a child with dyslexia, we'll straight call him dumb, or someone who's not able to learn or write will not do anything in life. But that's the thing, right? That's the thing about mental disorders. We have to start looking at them as normal. So if you look at the movie Tare Zameen Par, you will see that the child who is suffering from dyslexia, who's not able to read or write, is amazingly good at painting and amazingly good at drawing. So that's the thing, right? So if the child is not able to read or write in the right manner, he will be very, very good at something else. Let's say painting, let's say acting, let's say singing, sports, etc. So what is supposed to be done here is to recognize the child, to recognize the role that he's playing in the society and appreciate him as a human being. Well, what is the cause of dyslexia? The dyslexia is caused due to genes. The author says that dyslexia often runs in the family. Comparisons of various brains of how the brain have been set up of these children in their body shows differences from a normal human being to their dyslexic brains. It's a little bit different, and the predominant cause is genes. It runs in the family, it comes from their parents and comes from their you can say ancestors as such. So what is more important and how do we find a solution? Of course, there is no solution to this. There is no solution to curing dyslexia, but the only solution is recognizing and providing to their needs. The National Education Policy of 2020 says or mandates inclusive education for all children with disabilities. And it talks about how every child need to access the right kind of education that he or she deserves. Now that is why it is important to have assessment tests in school, cognitive assessment tests in school before taking in children. Now this is not the private schools that are conducting entrance examinations. No, I am talking about comprehensive cognitive assessment that a child needs to be undergone, so that we recognize how good is he at learning, how good is he at writing. This is way different from asking what is the capital of India, what is the capital of Sri Lanka, etc. But it's about how the child recognizes how to learn, what he's interested in learning, how good is he at grasping things, telling things, etc. That will help us understand if he is a child who has great learning skills, or is he dyslexic, or is he suffering from any kind of issues, or which makes him need special education provided in special schools and not conventional normal education that other child who is not suffering from dyslexia can go through with. So this is very, very important, and we have to understand that this is a common disorder that any child can suffer from and should not be tabooed. So the teachers and the parents play a very, very important role. The teachers should recognize these kind of children, should support them, should not mistreat or ill-treat them. Even the parents should not call these children useless, fit for nothing, but they should progress. They should help them progress, help them go ahead in the right manner. The author ends this article very nicely. She says, a child who believes in herself or himself and feels confident to face her own personal challenges is a child set on a path to success and happiness. She gives the examples of Albert Einstein, she gives the examples of Agatha Christie, she gives the examples of Steve Jobs, who were all dyslexic but today are legendary people. Well, you do the math. Tell me what you feel about this disorder in the comment section. We shall talk. Thank you for listening to today's podcast. Stay tuned to RS Agarwal's IAS. Until next time, take care. Bye-bye.